I have to tell you openly, I feel pressured. I feel pressured because you must be some of the smartest people in the world, but also some of the most critical, and I'm being very open and honest at the beginning of the presentation. And I am going to have to try to change your views on some things very, very drastically. So before we start, can I please ask you to raise your right arm and say, I am open for change. I'm open to change my mind. Okay, good. If you're open to change your mind, we're going to have a wonderful conversation. Agnieszka actually is the reason why I joined Google. In a very simple way, when she spoke to me about coming to Google the first time, I was at Microsoft. I was very comfortable. I was almost going to retire. And then she said, we have a position that you might be interested to consider. It's in a large internet conglomerate. And I said, no, thank you. And she said, no, it's the largest search engine in the world, wink, wink. And, and I said, no, I've just made up my mind. And she said something, I don't remember the exact words, but in my mind, what I heard was she responded to me and said, I said Google, stupid. Go meet them, right? And so I remember that, and so that stupid thing woke me up, and I've had the most incredible 11 years, 10 and a half years since. Anyway, now, I started emerging markets where I had the pleasure of working with Agnieszka and Artur and the team here. And then I moved to Google X around 2013. And in 2013, I started what was an incredible futuristic engineering organization. I was the first businessman and built the business organization where X started to have a lot more focus on changing the world in ways that are basically business oriented. And so between running emerging markets for Google and running being chief business officer for Google X, you have to admit I must be the luckiest person you ever met, right? So it doesn't get better than that. I'm not, however, going to talk to you about what we do at X. I mean, I'm happy to discuss how that impacts on your happiness in the question and answer part of this presentation. I also am a serial entrepreneur, so I co-founded around 25 businesses in my life, so I know the hardship you're going through every day. I understand how difficult it can be. So I'm also not going to talk to you about that. I'm here to talk to you about what I call my personal moonshot. Personal moonshot in terms of trying to, you know what a moonshot is? Moonshots in Google X are the attempts to solve big problems that affect the lives of billions of people through a breakthrough technology and a visionary, radical solution that has never been done before. So my personal moonshot is what I'm here to talk to you about. Before I start, I'm not on, what was it called? G+? I'm not on G+, I'm on Facebook. If you want to connect on Facebook, here are my links here. Yes, and please do connect because I'm going to ask you to please spread the word. Okay, what am I here to talk to you about? I'm here to talk to you about as I say, my personal moonshot, something that used to be called 10 million happy, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. The reason we're here, one thing, by the way, is we have 2 hours, right? Yeah, we have 2 hours, and for some reason I decided to try to time my presentation around an hour and 10, an hour and 15 minutes. Hoping that we will have a lot of open conversations. We can also have questions and conversations during the presentation for as much as you want. I will be very heartbroken and ashamed in front of Agnieszka and Agnieszka if you guys don't ask questions. So, can you please open up and share. I think that would make a big difference. So the reason I'm here is a very unusual journey. This beautiful, handsome young gentleman that you see up there is my son Ali. This was the last picture we had of him. He was 21 and a half years old when he left our world due to unexpected medical error. I had Ali when I was 24 and some. with a woman that I truly, truly, truly loved, still love until today. And he was an incredible human being. He was truly a tiny little Zen monk. Like he was born a Zen monk. Now I think about it and I think we should have given him orange diapers, if you want, because he was totally, totally peaceful throughout his life. Ali, at age 4 months, would wake up in the middle of the night with a wet diaper and not cry, which is really weird, right? He wouldn't even cry. He would stay there, look at the ceiling, and wait for mommy to wake up at 6, and then smile, right? Throughout my life with Ali, we disagreed only once. He was around 18, which was around the time when he was making his university decision. And we really disagreed because I felt he wasn't moving fast enough, he wasn't doing what he needed to do. And we had an argument that lasted around 4 or 5 minutes, and then I rushed back and I apologized, right? This is the only negative experience, if you want, I had with Ali. So he was my son, he was my best friend, and he was so wise. He was so wise that around age 16 or so, the roles flipped. The roles flipped. I was no longer his father and he my son. Around age 16, he became my mentor. Like literally, explicitly, I would actually go out to my dear friends and tell them that when I grow older, I want to become like Ali. That was how wise he was, right? So as you can imagine, if to lose a child, to lose your best, to lose a child is the hardest thing anyone ever has to endure, honestly. To lose your best friend is also very hard, and to lose your mentor and teacher and coach is even harder, and to lose all of them due to preventable medical error is hard, okay? All of a sudden, unexpectedly, is even harder, and at his prime is even harder. Like he was at his most beautiful ever at 21 and a half. And so we had the right as a family to shut our doors down and cry for the rest of our lives. As you can see, it still hurts until today, but surprisingly, we did not, which was really shocking. Surprisingly, we were not happy, just so that we preset the conversation so you understand it. We were not happy, right? But we were so peaceful, so calm. We were not angry at the doctor that did the mistake. We were not angry at life. We didn't think that life is unfair and that we should, grieve for the rest of our life. As a matter of fact, we grieved literally for 5 hours. And then I'll tell you during my presentation what happened 5 hours later. And then we were okay. We were so peaceful that people came to Ali's memorial. They would be crying, and we would be the ones I was dressed in a video game T-shirt. We would be the ones that would hug them and tell them what we understand about happiness and death in life, and you could visibly see them calm down, and you could see their energy changing. You could see them smiling, and they would literally be walking around our home laughing out loud, laughing loud, because they're sharing stories of Ali and their memories with Ali, and it felt very much like a celebration. And all of that was because of a model that I developed in the previous 14 years along with Ali. So I wasn't always, I was born a very happy young man, a young boy, became a very happy young man until age 23. While, to be honest, life wasn't easy, okay? By age 23, life started to bless me in ways that is the reason why I tell you I'm the luckiest man you ever met. By age 29, I was a director in a consumer goods company. I had 2 luxury cars in my massive garage of a massive garden with a massive swimming pool and a 4-bedroom villa and a beautiful wife who was my university sweetheart, who gave me 2 children. Ali, I told you about, and Aya was, literally yin and yang of life, if you want, yin and yang, because Aya was life itself. Aya is still so creative, so alive, so glowing all the time. And between those 2, on top of that, I was a day trader in the market. My math skills was serving me really well. I was making somewhere between 8 and 12% a month, every single month. money was pouring in, and I was miserable. I was miserable. I was totally depressed, clinically depressed. And I had no idea why that was happening. I poured money on the problem, right? I bought every gadget I could find. I bought every new game console I could find. I bought every car I desired. I went on vacations. I did everything. And I had everything, and I was miserable. And so I went and started to read myself out of the problem of my unhappiness. The problem, of course, is if you're like me, if you're logical, if you're an engineer, most of those books didn't mean anything at all. I literally, for 2.5 years, I kept reading, and I just couldn't even understand what they were talking about. All of this and meditation and mindfulness and spirituality. I'm spiritual, but I just couldn't get it. I didn't understand how to solve the problem. And 2.5 years in, I was more miserable than I started my journey, right? And so, in a very desperate attempt, in the Middle East where I come from, we're macho men. We don't do therapy. We don't believe in that stuff. We don't even acknowledge that we're unhappy, believe it or not. And so I had to do it differently. I did it as an engineer, okay? And I'll show you exactly how I went through the discovery of the topic of happiness. But as an engineer, I found very logical models to the topic of happiness that I had to verify with Ali. I had to verify with Ali by going every now and then to Ali and saying, Ali, I've done research for the last year and I did really, really well, and look at what I discovered. This is what triggers unhappiness. And he goes like, wow, tell me more, Papa. And in his very typical wise way, he would sit there and listen to me as I blabber. And then at the end, he would say something like, oh, I'm so proud of you, Papa. And of course, like a little child now, my mentor is telling me that he's proud of me. So I'm like, yes, 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 right? And he would verify for me what I actually found through logic, which to him was very instinctive. He knew how to be happy. So when I explained it to him, he explained it back to me, and we put it into a model that was the model that I explained to the people that came to his memorial. Okay? Very solid, very repeatable, very scalable, literally an engineering model. Okay? So when people started to listen to this, they told me, you have to write this down. You literally have to share this with the world. And so I basically started to write around 17 days after Ali died. I wrote for 4.5 months straight. And I had a book, 600 pages were written in 4.5 months. It was the first time ever in my life to write a book. And it was just flowing out of me. Of course, from one side, I was trying to document what I learned with my mentor because he was no longer there. On the other side, I was trying to help myself think through my loss, if you want, by writing Solve for Happy, to find my own happiness in a solid way by writing Solve for Happy. But most importantly, I was writing Solve for Happy for a very unusual reason. I was writing Solve for Happy because even though we didn't expect Ali to leave us, he knew he was leaving. I know some of you may not believe that, but he truly knew. For 6 weeks before he left, he spoke to every one of his friends about one topic only. Everyone came back to us after he died and said, the only thing Ali spoke about for the last 6 weeks was what happens to us when we die. Okay? He was asking everyone, asking every opinion, and in his very, very simple Ali wise way, he would say, wow, okay, that's really interesting. Anyway, I'm optimistic. I hope things will be fine. I think we will know for sure when we get there. Okay? Which was, again, so kind of him to let me know that he found his peace even before he left. Having said that, 2 days before he left, he sat us down and he gave all of us his will. Like literally, like an old grandfather, he sat us down and he started to tell each of us, myself, his mother, and his sister, how much he loved us and how much he appreciated having us in his life. And then he simply looked me in the eyes and said, Papa, I know you've been trying so hard to make the world a better place. Of course, as you can imagine, working at Google and the time where we were starting emerging markets is quite significant, actually, in terms of making the world a better place. He said, I want you to never stop doing this. okay? But I want you to start doing it depending on your heart rather than just your brain. And so to me, that translated immediately into Ali saying, you know, it's not about all of the billions of dollars and businesses and users and search and all of that stuff that I've been doing. It also is about sharing our model. And so the businessman in me, of course, you know, 2 weeks into writing, realized that this was my son's will, if you want. So I went all the way. I set myself a target. My target was 10 million happy people. And that target, surprise, surprise, seemed to be quite large at the time because I'm a first-time author and I don't even know the topic and I'm like a businessman and who's ever going to read this? Within 2 weeks from the launch of Solve for Happy, I had a video that some of you may have seen on Channel 4 in the UK that went super viral, more than 90 million views, and literally started a movement. And so I would tend to believe, I have 3 measurements of how do I say 10 million happy. It's basically, I measure that people have committed to prioritize their happiness above everything else, that they have the tools and they're using the tools to actually find that happiness, and that they're committing to make other people happy. And so with those measurements in place, 10 million happy was done, I think, around 3.5 months within the launch of the book. So, businessman, as you can imagine, I decided to take the target a little bit up. So we're now talking about 1 billion happy. 1 billion happy is actually the foundation. It's going to be 1billionhappy.org. And 1 billion happy is, we announced it 10 days ago in the Netherlands. And believe it or not, I actually believe it's doable. From what I've seen so far, 93 to 96% of everyone who comes across the content of Solve for Happy will say, this changed my life forever. Right? And you will see today, I guarantee you 96% of you will know that they can find happiness from now on. So it's a matter of reach. And reach to me is not a matter of me, because I'm the bottleneck, to be honest. I cannot achieve 1 billion. I cannot reach 1 billion people. So what we started to do is we're starting a movement. If you've ever seen the movie Pay It Forward, I'm asking people everyone to tell 2 people who will tell 2 people who will tell 2 people, right? So it's as simple as that. And actually, before we even start my presentation, I'm going to ask you to promise me one promise, okay? If I manage to give you something that makes you happy today, 2 things. If I give you 2 things that will change your life forever, I think that's a fair deal, huh? If I give you 2 things that will change your life forever, you're going to promise me that you're going to tell 2 people what you learned, and you're going to ask them to tell 2 people each, and that each of them tells 2 people each. Promise? Good. If I don't deliver anything, you have no commitment. You can completely ignore me, okay? If I deliver more than 2, can you be generous and tell maybe 15 people? Is that a good deal? Good. Okay. Negotiation, all the time. Good. So with that, are we okay? Are we happy? Sorry, I took a bit of time on the story, but it's important to frame it. So let's talk about happiness itself. Why is happiness hard to find? So here I am, I'm a young man, 23 years of age. We didn't have enough money. And, you know, literally at the end of the month, we would not have enough to eat, okay? And we were the happiest, myself and my ex at the time, you know, we were the happiest people ever. Everything was amazing while life was awful, okay? And then at age 29, I have everything you can think of, and I'm very unhappy. Why? I started to ask myself, why? Why is it so hard to find when I can pour money at it, when I can pour resources at it, when I can have everything, you know, I need? Why am I unhappy, right? And, you know, this is a question that I have asked probably 12,000 people this last year alone, because of the talks I give. I would normally, when we do the workshops, I would normally ask people, why is happiness hard to find? And people will give me all sorts of answers. You know, it's like, it's hard to find because life sucks. Like it's because it's raining all the time, or because it's too cold, or because my boyfriend is an asshole, or because, I have not achieved what I set out to achieve yet. Some of the interesting answers I get are, happiness is hard to find because I don't even know what happiness is. Right? How can I find it if I don't know what it is? Some people will say, happiness is hard to find because every time I achieve it, it seems to move further away. So I tell myself I'll be happy when I buy a car, and the minute I buy a car, I tell myself, no, I'll be happy when I buy a BMW, right? You know, and it's just constantly moving away. One of the best answers I get is happiness is hard to find because I'm not even searching for it. I don't have time for this, right? And I can guarantee you, some of you in the rooms, especially entrepreneurs and startups and people who are driven, right, will say, what's this happiness shit? It's like, I'm not interested in this, okay? I have higher targets, higher priorities. Some of them will say, when, you know, my target is to be successful on the cover of Forbes magazine, and the others will say, well, you know, no, forget that stuff, I need $100 million. And others will say, no, I'm about changing the world. I can't find happiness. I want to give, you know, clean water to the 783 million people who don't have, 86 million people who don't have clean water today. All valid reasons, right? Can you come up with a few reasons of your own? I'm sure, right? So I gave myself all of those justifications as I was a young man, and I was saying, hey, happiness is hard to find because life is designed to make us unhappy. Interesting. And then I paused in a moment of truth. For some reason, my first 3 discoveries were always when I was visiting my mother back in Egypt, okay? So my first discovery was like, no, this is crap. You're lying to yourself. Because if you are an engineer and I give you a machine that is broken, and I tell you, can you please fix this for me? The first thing you will ask me is, when did it break? How long did it work well before that? And what was good working order? How did it perform when it was working, right? And so I started to apply the same concept to this machine. I said, this machine is broken now. I was around 29. But it wasn't at age 23, and I started to go back, and I say, was it broken at 22? No. 21? No. 16? I was okay. 12? I was very happy, right? 3? I was the happiest kid ever. 0? I was happy. Shit. The machine was okay. The design of the machine was okay, right? And it hit me that the machine was born happy, right? So every child you have ever seen, by the way, including yourself, when you were this age, what was your state? If you were fed, if you were given your basic needs for survival, if the room wasn't too cold, right? What was your state? You were happy. You didn't want an Xbox to be happy. You didn't need anyone to say, oh my God, your hair looks beautiful today, to be happy. None of that really mattered at all. You really didn't need anything from outside you to be happy. The only conditions that made you unhappy was a wet diaper, a little bit of hunger, right? And once that need was fulfilled, when you were hungry, you were very grumpy and unhappy. When you were fed, boom, nothing from outside you was needed. You lay on your back, you looked at the ceiling, you played with your toes, and you felt happy. Now here's the interesting question. For everyone in this room, your basic needs are met, right? You have enough to eat. You have a quote or two to feel warm. You feel safe. Life comes with challenges, but your basic needs are met. Can anyone here lay on their back, play with their toes, and be happy? No, right? Interesting. So when you think about that, in technology terminologies, what does that mean? It means happiness is your default setting. So think about that, because this is really, really important. Happiness is your default setting means that it's like your Android phones, right? You buy an Android phone, you take it out of the box, first day it's shiny, right? It's beautiful, the menus swipe like a charm, right? The battery lasts a full day, that first day, remember? Yeah? And then something goes wrong, right? Tell yourself, I bought the best phone ever. I'm so proud of my choice. I'm amazing. This phone works. It's properly designed, right? On the second day, you start to tell yourself, what's wrong? The phone is misbehaving. The battery needs to be charged twice a day. The menus are clunky, and some of those apps are like really slow. What's wrong, right? Is anything wrong with the design of the phone? No. It's those weird apps you install on it. You know that app? I have friends in Mountain View who have an app on their phone that measures the pollution level in Beijing every few seconds. Yeah, I mean, it's an important topic, right? You know, global warming and shit. But, you know, it's actually really interesting. When you do that, you have an app that's pinging the network every 2.5 seconds and then switching on your screen to say, hey, by the way, pollution level is increased. And you feel concerned, and then, oh, it dropped, you feel, right? And the app, by the way, is not to blame either, huh? The app is doing exactly what you're telling it to do. But the mix of a bad app and a good phone results in a phone that's misbehaving. That's exactly the same that happens to us. We are born happy. We can lay on our backs and feel happy. And then we install weird apps, like seriously weird apps. You remember the app that said, the shape of your body matters, right? If you're not super slim, like a paint brushed or I don't know what they call them, right? Photoshopped, like a photoshopped image, you're not good enough. That app screws up so much. There's another app that says, oh, I'm only successful when I'm a millionaire. There's a third app that says, and if I'm not a millionaire, I'm going to starve to death. There is an app that says, fitting in and acceptance by everyone at school is important. Okay? There is an app that says, I don't like the government. Whatever the government will do, I will hate them. Right? There is another app that says, hey, and by the way, I know better than the government. So whatever they do, I think is crap. Right? And all of those apps, they perform what you tell them to do. They make you, critical of life if you want. They make you have an opinion, a view, something that's very prominent in some countries, including Poland. It's that you will look at everything and you will say, I just don't like this. This is not good enough. This is not good enough. I'm not good enough. They're not good enough. That is not good enough. And nothing's good enough. Right? And that performs what you ask it to perform, but it makes you unhappy on the way. Now, I'm going to claim to you that unhappiness, that idea of unhappiness being outside you is actually not true at all. It's almost exactly like this. Have you ever gone searching for your keys when they were already in your pocket? Do you remember that? People who wear glasses like me will know what I'm talking about. You put your glasses on, and then you go searching for them everywhere, and you can't find them, right? You know what that is? You're searching for them everywhere. You can jump under every seat, open the fridge and the freezer, and look inside. You're not going to find your keys. Why? Because they're in your pocket all along. And that's what we've been doing with happiness, right? We're searching for it outside us. We're actually searching for a replacement of it. Weapons of mass distraction is what I call it. I'll come back to that at the end of the presentation, right? And we can't find it. Why can't we find it? Because it's here all along, right? So the best documentation I ever found of that, and the eye-opening moment in my life, was when I heard this song. Any Supertramp fans? Yeah. I'm so sorry about what's happening to our world. I apologize, really. But if you're not a Supertramp fan, you should become a Supertramp fan, right? This is the reason, the key to happiness. But at least if you don't, your homework for today is to download the Logical song, please, and listen to it 50 times this month, right? Because 50, like seriously, count them, okay? Because this is how it goes. It documents your life story in 40 seconds, and this is how it goes. Yeah, isn't that it? That's the story of our life, really. Remember that time when you were 6 years old? 6 years old. They put you in school and they said, okay, it's time. Right? No more playful, no more fun, no more expressing your views freely, No more having emotions. Emotions are bad, right? It's about time we get serious. So you're going to sit here 8 hours a day. You're not going to talk. Whatever crap the teacher is going to say, you're going to say, yes, sir, right? And then when you go home, you do homework, right? And you would go like, why, mommy? And she says, because I need you to be successful. I need you to be safe in life. I need you to have the abilities to make money. And for you to do that, you're going to have to pay a small tax, which is misery for the rest of your life. Okay? But by the way, if you do that long enough, sometime around age 67, you're going to retire and then you can be happy. And I mean, you're laughing, but isn't that it? And how stupid is that? Like, seriously? I have to stay unhappy until 67 to feel happy again? Seriously? Right? So the logical song, what did they really tell you? They told you that dependable is important. I agree with that. Right? But clinical, cynical, are those important? Right? Are these really necessary for us to be successful? I'm going to show you in a few minutes that cynical and critical are the absolute design of unhappiness. Design. Those who are cynical and critical are designed to be unhappy whatever life gives them. Right? So with that, if you're more of a visual thinker, this is how it looks like. The baby happy you, believe it or not, is still in there. It shows up every 15th Sunday when it's sunny outside, your boyfriend's not annoying, and your boss is not around. Okay? When that happens, nothing from outside you is needed. No, you no longer are waiting for that iPhone 10 or for the promotion you've been obsessing about anymore. Right? When that Sunday happens, somehow you feel happy. Not because life gave you anything, life just took away your reasons for unhappiness. You understand the difference? Just by taking away the reasons for your unhappiness, you find that happy child inside again. And that was the second biggest turning moment in my life. When I was doing my research, literally, it was, I think, 2004, I put the pen down and I said, man, that is such an important thing. I've been searching, like they tell me on Cosmopolitan magazine, for, the 10 things, that make you happy. There are no 10 things to make you happy. There are no 4 things. There are no 3 things. There is only one thing you should do, which is to stop being unhappy. Because surprisingly, if you stop being unhappy, what's left behind is happy. There is nothing. Remember those gadgets? There is nothing you can do. There is no additional app that you can put on top of the Beijing pollution app that can extend the battery life. Right? There is nothing you can do on top of all of the reasons for your unhappiness to find happiness again. You can buy a Rolls Royce if you want. It won't make any difference. It will give you happiness or joy or pride or serotonin for 20 seconds, and then it will go away. Right? So to find that happy you inside you, this statement here is the most important statement of my whole presentation. I know it sounds really simple, but think of this and read it 3 times, please. Happiness is the absence of unhappiness. Truly, happiness is simply the absence of unhappiness. So instead of looking for reasons to be happy, my research flipped upside down. I started to look for reasons why I'm unhappy. Okay? If I manage to remove the reasons why I'm unhappy, what's left behind is happy. Amazing, right? So how do you do that with gadgets? You reset, right? You don't add an additional app on top of the Beijing app, right? You remove the Beijing app, okay? In Android phones, there is a reset factory settings, function. We don't have that as humans, so I'm going to have to ask you to take them one by one. We're going to discuss them one by one and remove them one by one. Okay so far? Questions? Oh, this is going to be difficult. Okay. Right. So here am I, second biggest discovery, and now I'm telling myself, great, I can do that. I can easily find the reasons for my unhappiness. And when I find them, I'm going to find happiness again. And then the engineer in me jumps in, annoying as we are engineers, and it says, but hey, happiness might be right here. And you can't even notice it because you don't even know what happiness is. So I started to look for the answer. I started to ask everyone I knew. I read every book I had again to answer the question, what is happiness? And it's really shocking because, as evident by the fact that every one of you is here in the room, it means that you actually want to be happy, right? But how can you want to be happy when you don't know what happiness is? How can you find it if you don't know what it is, right? And that puzzled me because all of those books were telling me, look, sit, cross-legged, meditate, say you'll find happiness. And I go like, great, what is happiness? Oh no, doesn't matter, you're just gonna find it, right? And that, great, it just doesn't work for me. I mean, by the way, I say those things to make you laugh, but the truth is they work, huh? So meditation works. But when you understand why they work, as I will show you in the presentation later, you will start to generate that not only from meditation, but from many other things, right? Anyway, I was sitting there saying, so what is happiness, right? And I couldn't find the answer. Everyone I asked gave me a different answer, so I decided to do it like a scientist would do it. If I give you, again, as an engineer, I'm sure there are many engineers in the room, if I give you a system, and I tell you, look, I don't know the equation that describes the behavior of that system, reverse engineer it, what would you do? You would take as many data points as you can for the behavior of the system. You will run the machine and take data points and plot them on a chart, and the behavior, the trend line that describes that chart is what your equation is. So I did exactly that, and I know it sounds really weird, but so I sat down and I wrote down 92 points. I remember vividly, 92 points of data which were moments in my life where I felt happy, okay? I was basically trying to plot them on a chart, hoping that there is an equation to that chart, and that what I needed to do afterwards is once I found the equation, I could find points on that equation and trigger happiness on demand. Weird, but it worked, okay? So I did this, I call this the happy list, and that's your second homework for today, right? Happy list is a very simple exercise. You're looking for statements that complete the sentence, I feel happy when, okay? I feel happy when I have a good cup of coffee. Anyone here loves coffee? Yeah, I feel happy. How many coffees do you have every day? Yeah, too many, yeah. How many of them are good? Yeah, too few, right? So that's really interesting, huh? I feel happy when I have a good cup of coffee was really eye-opening for me, because suddenly I realized, hey, that's easy. I can invite this into my life very often, okay? As a matter of fact, my little home in California, which I never ever visit for the last 8 months, has the most expensive item in that home is my coffee machine, okay? And everyone would look at me and say, you're stupid. And I say, no, this makes me really happy. And I invest the time to make an excellent cup of coffee in the morning. It's a very programmable, like a geek coffee machine. And then I save that configuration, and then I try it again with different milk. And if the coffee is bad, I throw it away, right? It's as simple as that. I have no guilt at all. I want my good cup of coffee, right? And I have 5 a day, 1 caffeinated and 4 decaf, right? And I study, and whenever I have a break, I go to roasteries around the countries I visit. I love coffee. It makes me happy, right? If you don't know what makes you happy, you would not be inviting it into your life often enough, right? I feel happy when my daughter smiles. I call my daughter, I text my daughter 4 times a day. I call her every week or every 3 days. I know, if she's not smiling, I say a joke and I see her smile. Very selfishly, I want her to smile. You understand? But the idea is this, if you know what it is that makes you happy, you're going to invite it in your life a lot more often. So your happy list is a very important homework. But that's not the only thing. The more important thing is, I guarantee you, I know I'm spoiling it a little for you here, but I guarantee you that list will not have, I feel happy when I buy a Ferrari. Okay? It will not have, I feel happy when I win the Nobel Prize. Okay? It doesn't have those things. Those things make you unhappy thinking about them, but the reality is these are not the reasons that make you happy. What makes you happy is normally so simple. So simple, things you can invite in your life once a week, a day, or once a week at most. When you start to see it that way, something very interesting will happen. Suddenly you will have a sense of gratitude that most of the things that really make you happy are actually available to you all the time. That sense of gratitude, surprisingly, is going to make you happy just working on your happy list. So the most interesting thing for me was I was depressed at the time, and I started to work on my happy list, and nothing happened. But just by working on my happy list, I felt very happy. So of course, like a typical control freak, I started to become obsessive. I started to sort my happy list, identify what my top 20 are, add pictures to them, build it in a file format that was available across my Windows, Mac, and phone, right? And like seriously, and they had, at the time I was building something like a Google Docs, if you want, where I can share and they change everywhere. But it became very obsessive for me, and I looked at it every time I felt unhappy. So I ask you to actually please work on that. Your happy list is a very, very important list. Having said that, that wasn't the purpose of the exercise. The purpose of the exercise is I was trying to find the trend line, right? I was trying to find what's common across all of them. And I normally would give you a few minutes to guess, but you know, in favor of the time today, I'm just going to tell you the answer. And the answer was so simple that at the beginning I started to tell myself, no, that's not true, right? Believe it or not, I took my happy list and I plotted it against every axis you can think of. I took all of my happy moments against my age, all of my happy moments against my weight, my state of love, the amount of hair on my head, everything. Like literally was trying to find any trend that says more hair equals happiness. No, nothing, right? The only common thing among all of them was this. I feel happy when life seems to be going my way. Okay? I feel unhappy when life seems to be disappointing me. It's really interesting. Okay? Let's put it this way. If it rains tomorrow, and you're expecting it to rain tomorrow, you're not going to feel unhappy. But because today it's sunny, and you're hoping that it'll be sunny tomorrow, if it rains tomorrow, you'll feel disappointed. It's as simple as that. Okay? It's not about the event of rain. It's about how you wish life would behave. If life behaved the way you want life to behave, you're happy. Okay? If life behaved in a way that is not like what you want it to behave, you feel unhappy. It's a bit of a 6-year-old approach to life. So you go to daddy and you say, Daddy, I want this toy. Right? If the toy is out of stock or if you've been misbehaving for the last 6 months, you don't care. If daddy says no, you cry. Right? You want a toy, you don't get the toy, you cry, you get the toy, you're happy. Right? As an engineer, you can put that in a simple equation, call it the happiness equation. Your happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectation of how life should behave. I'll give you a minute to think about that. Think of every event in your life where you felt unhappy. So, the underlying assumption here is that we feel unhappy because life is not giving us what we deserve, that life is unfair. No, life is giving us stuff. But as we compare it to what we want, the way we want life to behave, then we get disappointed and unhappy. Now, this equation, believe it or not, is the sole purpose you have a brain, for which you have a brain. I know most of us have glorified our brains so much and believe that our brains were given to us to build our civilization. No. Your brain was given to you to solve this equation up to 60,000 times a day. In the half an hour since we started this presentation, okay, your brain has solved this equation probably 400 to 500 times. Right? So you sat in this, I started to talk, you said, okay, looks like he knows what he's doing, good introduction, I haven't wasted my day so far, that's good, I'm happy, right? A few minutes later you felt, I need coffee, so you went back and you got coffee, right? If there was no coffee there, you would go like, this event is not going right, okay? You're sitting here, you look at the event, you go like, the room is a little cold, it's nice and bright, but the chairs are too hard, Google should invest in softer chairs, unhappy. Right? Every single one of those, the events outside you and the events inside you. You could be sitting here, the event is going well, but your neck is a little stiff, or your girlfriend was annoying in the morning, and you can combine those two together into one event that says, I don't like this moment. Right? And in that very interesting way, happiness, or rather, I should say unhappiness. Unhappiness truly is just a survival mechanism. Yep, that was discovery number 3, right? So unhappiness is a survival mechanism in terms of your brain is a supercomputer that's collecting all of the sensory data from all of those wonderful sensors that we install on them, that are installed on the machine: sight, sound, feeling, emotion, whatever that is. Okay? It crunches all of that very complex environment around it, does what we now term as deep learning, and creates one abstract concept of what the world at this moment is. Now, then it assesses it as it calls that the event, and it assesses it as against the expectation of what is a safe environment for me to thrive, right? Interestingly, when your brain compares that event to expectation and it sees that it's okay, it doesn't feel threatened in any way. And so you know what it does? It leaves you alone. It's as simple as that. And when it leaves you alone, what's your default setting? You're happy. Right? The problem is when your brain compares the event to the expectations of what is a safe, thriving environment for me, and it finds that it doesn't like it. Your brain gets concerned. And so when it gets concerned, what does it do? It needs to alert you. But your brain is talking to you all the time and you're not listening. So how does it alert you? It gives you an emotion that is overwhelming enough for you to stop doing what you're doing and start paying attention. So it makes you anxious, it makes you worried, it makes you guilty, it makes you ashamed, or it makes you sad, right? That survival mechanism, I'll show you in a few minutes, is amazing. It's an incredible device, right? The problem is, if it gets you alerted enough to take action, well done. If it just makes you miserable, how stupid is that? And so I did a simulation, if you want, an engineering simulation of the product. I tried a small experiment that takes me from happiness to unhappiness and back, right? So in that experiment, I will ask you to do 2 things at the same time. You want to throw it back? Yeah. So I will ask you to do 2 things at the same time, right? Success is to achieve both at the same time. The second thing I will ask you to do is to add a few numbers on the screen. You're one of the smartest nations out there, so it's not going to be a difficult task. They're going to be fast, but I think you can do it. Okay? The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is even easier. I'm going to ask you to think of something that makes you unhappy. Okay? So first, I will ask you to close your eyes. I call this the blank brain test. Right? And first, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, and for 20 seconds, think of something that makes you unhappy, and really, really find that unhappy feeling inside you. Like really feel unhappy about it, and keep that unhappiness in there as we do the second part. Okay. While you remain unhappy, please open your eyes and add the numbers as they show on the screen. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll show them to you again. I apologize. It's a bit of a difficult math test. All right, there you go. Add them. Oh, I don't know. Something's wrong with my computer, or maybe it's a trick question, but this was not a math test, okay? This was a happiness test. And I want you to understand what happened here. Anyone added the numbers, by the way? No. I actually think some Googlers would probably, like in Korea or something, would add it. I don't know. But anyway, this was a full cycle simulation. I want you to understand what happened here, okay? At T0, I tricked you. Remember, I asked you, everything's okay? Am I meeting your expectations? Are you happy? Right? I was signing a legal agreement where you said, yes, I'm happy. So T0, you were happy. Right? T1, I asked you to think of something that makes you unhappy. Right? And T2, you were laughing again. That's a full cycle simulation. Right? And there are really 2 questions to ask. Between T0 and T1, did anything happen in the real world? Anything at all? Okay. What is the only thing that happened between T0 and T1? You started thinking. Do you understand that? That's actually really eye-opening. Huh? The only thing that happened between T0 and T1 is you started thinking. Okay? You may have thought about the Uber driver was rude yesterday. Okay? But the Uber driver was not rude right now. The Uber driver was rude yesterday. He was rude at T0 when I asked you, that event was still valid at T0 when I asked you, are you happy? And you said yes. Okay? Then at T1, when you started to think about it, you became unhappy. Okay? So no real event triggered your unhappiness. What triggered your unhappiness was the power you granted to an event from the past by turning it into a thought that tortured you. Interesting. T2, all I did is I showed you a few numbers on the screen, which basically means what? I distracted you, right? I stopped you from thinking about whatever it is that you were thinking about. And the result was that you're happy again. It's not the thought that makes you unhappy, sorry. It's the event that makes you unhappy. It's not the event that makes you unhappy, it's the thought that makes you unhappy. Ignore this simulation, I clicked wrong. Hold on, animation, yes. Right? So, thoughts are what makes us unhappy. Any comments on that? That's really eye-opening, huh? Right. Discovery number 2. I had asked you to stay unhappy for 20 seconds, right? You went to your brain and said, hey brain, do you have something to torture me with here? And I could visibly see you as you closed your eyes, your brains within 4 seconds, very efficiently, unhappiness on demand. Okay? It's like Netflix, basically. It's like, yeah, can you bring that scene from day before yesterday when my boyfriend didn't kiss me as he walked out? Yep, sure. What does that mean, brain? It means he doesn't love you anymore. Oh, what does that mean, brain? Oh, you're gonna have to go dating again. Shit, right? I'm never gonna find another man again, and life will go on, right? And your brain can continue to do this if I had given you the time for maybe 40 seconds, you think? 40 days? 40 years? I know of people, I'm not making this up, who are 84 years of age, right? And every time I meet her, she will say, you have no idea what I had to go through when I was 17. Do you know anyone like that? Yeah? 67 years of the same thought. As a matter of fact, I apologize to say this, but some of us will tell our grandchildren about what our parents had gone through so that they too feel the pain. Right? Now here's the question. If you had kept that thought in your brain for the next 40 seconds, for the next 40 minutes, just let's be realistic. If you sat down in the corner and said, my boyfriend didn't kiss me in the morning, okay? And you thought about that for the next 40 minutes, would he show up and kiss you? Would you be able to go back in time and replay the morning differently? Would he show up and apologize? Would he do anything differently? Would anything actually happen in the real world? Say no, Mo. Nothing would happen in the real world. I'll come to that in a minute. But thank you. Right? It's very convenient because you have someone to blame. But I'll come back to that in a minute. I just want you to understand the engineering process here. Think about that. Here is an engineering process. Imagine if Audi or Facebook created a technology that would be able to torture you with unhappiness as a result of nothing and lead to nothing, but you feeling unhappy. So it's triggered by nothing and results in nothing in the real world. Would you rush to download that? Would you go like, yeah, absolutely, I love this? Right? If you had a friend, I normally call her Becky. Any Beckys in the room? Good. So I normally call her Becky. If you had a friend who's, Becky, who comes up to you every 7 minutes or so and says, hey, why don't you come with me here to the corner? I'm going to torture you and tell you things that make you feel bad about yourself for the next 20 minutes. I'm going to poke you in the ribs as I do it, and then you'll go back to your normal life with nothing more than feeling very bad. Would you say, yes, Becky, let's do it? Right? Would you go like, hey, I miss Becky. I need Becky to give me the convenience of telling me that life is horrible. Right? What would you do with Becky? You would say no. You would say, no, Becky, that doesn't sound fair to me. Okay? You did it last time. I'm never going to do it again. Okay? As a matter of fact, the question is really, would you want to be friends with Becky? Good. So that engineering process is what we go through every day. As a matter of fact, we go through several times a day. And my question to you with a ton of respect is, how stupid is that? Why? Why would we not allow Becky to do this, but we would allow our brains to do this? Yes, I'm going to fix that, because there is a shortcut in our brain that we need to fix. Good. So here are two important things to understand. It's the thought, not the event, that makes us unhappy. And suffering is a total waste. That act of suffering truly is a total waste. But you will say, hey, Mo, but we learn from that. I'll come back to that in a minute. Right. So your happiness equation actually looks like this. The events of your life are not what makes you unhappy. It's the way you think of the events of your life minus your expectation of how life should behave. So why does our brain do this to us? By the way, it's not only that if we had stayed for 40 minutes, it would make no sense, no difference to the real world. More importantly, we keep visiting it over and over and over and over. We have that little remote control that replays things over and over and over. It's like that girlfriend I had when I was in high school, still pops up every now and then. It's like, oh man, she really scarred me, right? She still pops up every now and then for a very interesting reason, right? We termed the happiness equation a survival mechanism. So for you to understand how it works, we need to understand other survival mechanisms, right? And the most prominent of all of our survival mechanisms is pain, right? Pain and emotional pain are massive survival mechanisms for us as humans, right? Pain is a very clear one to understand. Right? You put your hand on a hot stove or on a grill, right? Your brain realizes that this will destroy the skin on your hand, and it will render it unusable. So you will feel the pain. You will take your hand away, right? You will keep your hand protected for as long as you feel the pain. So as long as there is a need for protection, your brain will actually keep feeling the pain. The interesting thing about pain is, when the need for protection goes away, the pain goes away. Right? That is the case with physical pain. It's not the case with emotional pain. And that's when it really becomes interesting. Emotional pain is, my boyfriend didn't kiss me in the morning. Right? That hurt. Okay? That's pain. The pain is, that hurt. Something's wrong in my life. If he didn't do that, it's a reason for concern. Right? So that pain event happens, it triggers emotional pain. Unlike physical pain, where you cannot actually regenerate the pain of burning your hand on demand, emotional pain you can. You can go to you can be on your commute to work and start playing the same scene again, right? You can even add to it. You can tell yourself, oh, he must be having an affair, right? You can tell yourself, it's because now I'm in my 30s and I'm ugly, right? Which none of it is true, but you can build on that story, right? It's not true unless you tell yourself it's true. No, even if you tell yourself it's true, it's still not true, right? And then you click, and for you it becomes true, but it isn't, right? You click and you feel unhappy because the event is over, right? And then you click again when you get to the coffee machine at work and you feel unhappy. It's a process we call incessant thinking, right? And you click again and you feel unhappy. You literally have to click. You have to tell your brain, bring that thought back up again. Or you have to allow your brain to bring that thought back up again. How stupid is that? A process that's triggered by nothing other than you willing to allow the thought and resulting in nothing. Okay? If any of you have ever gone to the dentist after a week of pain and the dentist fixed it, right? You know, after that week of pain, you tell yourself, from now on, I'm going to brush. So on your way out, you tell the dentist, can you please give me an app that I can put on the phone, and every time I click on the app, I feel the pain again, so I stand up and brush, right? And he does give you the app, right? Would you actually keep clicking every now and then to get up and brush? Why? Why do we regenerate the pain on demand? Okay? Because of something I call the suffering cycle. And the suffering cycle is very straightforward. You know those friends that will call you at 9 a.m. in the morning because they had something that they wanted to tell you since 3 a.m. in the morning and they can't wait, right? And so they call at 9, you don't answer, so they call at 9:02, you don't answer, they call at 9:03, you don't answer, you call at 9:04, you don't answer, and then at 9:07, you have one of those, right? And at 9:07, you take your phone and you text and say, I'm busy, I'll call you at 11. And they stop. You know those people, right? Yeah, that's your brain. It's, you know, it goes like, your brave boyfriend didn't kiss you in the morning, suffering, like, oh, feel bad about it, feel hurt, and then you do nothing about it, right? So it goes like, there's something we need to talk about. Your boyfriend didn't kiss you in the morning, and then it makes you feel suffering, and then you do nothing about it. And then you go to the coffee machine and it says, hey, good meeting, by the way, but your boyfriend didn't call you in the morning, didn't kiss you in the morning. Right? And it keeps doing it, and it can keep doing it for 67 years. Right? Why? Because it's concerned. It's not your enemy. It just is concerned that something is wrong. If you actually tell your brain, all right, I get it. Text your boyfriend and say, hey, baby, is something wrong? Okay? Or decide that you're going to talk about it over dinner. Done. Your brain will go like, okay, good. I'm happy that you took note. Okay? Simple as that. Right? That suffering cycle continues because we let it continue. We don't turn it into the right actions. And then comes the answer to the question. With that, I am now finally allowed to get to the core of my presentation to introduce you to your suffering machine. Okay? So that, you know, there is a strong statement I need to make here. I can tell you, until proven wrong, that you have never, ever in your life, ever in your life felt unhappy for any reason other than this 3-pound lump of meat. Okay? No unhappiness ever happened to you for any other reason than this the ability of this machine to create something that makes you unhappy. Okay? It goes much further than that, by the way. Huh? So it first creates thoughts that create emotions that re-trigger thoughts that create more emotions, and then it floods you with hormones and chemicals. Right? And the whole machine is designed to make you unhappy. Now, there are two things about this machine that you need to know that will change your life forever. I promise you, it will change your life forever. How many of you, like me, have a voice in their head telling them what to do all the time? Okay, those who did not raise their hands are lying, right? How many have more than one voice? Okay. Good, excellent, thanks for the honesty. Right. That voice in our heads, you know, is telling us to do things all the time. How many of you believe that this voice is you? Don't be shy. Okay. This voice is you talking to you, right? Good. So that, I have news for you, is not true. Okay? This is the biggest myth in the Western culture ever. Right? I actually think of Poland as Western culture because this generation is highly influenced by the European culture of business, success, productivity, and everything. Right? So let me ask you a few questions, just so that you frame it correctly. Your heart, no, let's say your lungs are supposed to take air in, take CO2 from your blood, put it in the air, take O2 out of the air, put it in your blood, and take air out. How many of you think of yourself as air? CO2, O2, nobody, right? Your heart pumps blood around your body. How many of you think of yourself as blood? So the biological product of your heart is blood being pumped around your body. Nobody thinks of themselves as blood. Anyone here thinks of themselves as urine? The other one? Right? No. The biological product of your kidneys is urine. Nobody thinks of themselves as urine. The biological product of your brain is thoughts. Why do we think of ourselves as thoughts? Okay? Very interesting question. If the voice in your head was you talking to you, why would it need to talk? Have you ever thought of that? Why would it need to talk? If it was you, it wouldn't need to talk. Now, there is a ton of study that gets neglected in the West somehow, since 1930s actually, where they realized that Lev Vygotsky was the first that did that, a Russian scientist, that basically noticed that when you're talking to yourself in your head, they call it inner speech, your voice box is moving slightly like it would when you speak out loud. MRI studies afterwards actually proved that when you're having inner speech, the same parts of your brain that are triggered when you speak out loud are triggered when you have inner speech, right? In 1930, Vygotsky basically said that inner speech develops after outer speech, okay? That we start by, when we start to learn language, we repeat words out loud to understand concepts. So, I would be able to say glass, okay? And I repeat that out loud as a child, and then it becomes awkward. And so for me, I stopped saying them out loud, and when I see a glass, I say a glass full of tea with honey, right? I internalize that, and that's the way I can comprehend the concept, okay? A glass of tea and honey, there is no other way, unfortunately, after the first, say, 18 months of my life where I could use my subconscious brain to experience life, I can now only use my conscious brain, and the only currency of knowledge for my conscious brain is words. So what happens really, and again, MRI studies show that, what happens really is that when your brain crunches all of the work that's around it into a concept, it literally translates it into a Polish word for you to understand it, into a concept, okay? And because of that, your brain is literally talking to you. It literally is talking to you. So concept number one is the voice in your head is not you. The voice in your head is your brain talking to you. I think, therefore I am, Descartes' concept, okay, is absolute bullshit. I am, therefore I think. I am, therefore my brain thinks is the truth. Okay? And now if with that one thing, by the way, every other culture in the world, other than the Western culture, understands that instinctively. No one ever calls the voices in their head them, ever. Right? Now, with that change, suddenly, my life flipped upside down. It was 2007 at the time. Okay? My life flipped upside down because you know what? I no longer had to obey. Suddenly, I started to treat my brain as it really is. When it spoke to me and said bullshit, I said bullshit. I don't like what you're saying. When Becky showed up, actually Becky, I call it Becky, by the way, because one of my friends calls her brain Becky. Okay? And when I told her why do you call her Becky? She said Becky was the most annoying kid in school. Right? The one that never stopped talking. Right? And when Becky shows up, so let me explain this to you. I deal with my brain as my tool. Okay? Not as me. So someone sends me an annoying email, my brain goes like, yeah, let's shoot her. No, brain, like seriously, that's not a good idea. Go back, do better, right? Bring me a better thought, right? I don't have to listen, I don't have to obey, and often I would say like, don't like this thought, shut up. Have you ever tried that? Shut up, brain, I never ever want to hear this thought again. Let me give you an example of that. Huh? My brain, when Ali died, attacked me fiercely with the thought, you should have driven him to another hospital. Valid thought. Yeah, I wish I could drive him to another hospital. What can I do with this brain? What can I do with this now? Can I actually go back and drive him to another hospital? Right? Can I reverse time in any way? And by the way, should I have driven him to another hospital? He was in pain. His appendix was about to burst. Right? We needed to drive to the nearest hospital. What are you talking about, brain? I don't want this thought again. As simple as that. People walk into my office all the time, as you know, when I'm at Google, and they come with a business plan and I don't like it. No hard feelings. I mean, everyone remembers who worked with me. I'll say, I love that you put effort into this. It's not good enough. Can you please go back and work on sections 4 and 7? No problem. They go back. A week later, they come back. Better. Simple, right? No hard feelings because they're not me. So let me finish this concept, the second concept, and then I'll answer a bit of the question. So she said, how do you handle missing him? Okay. So if your brain is a tool, think of it as a sports car, right? Because honestly, it's the best tool you've ever been given. The problem is we don't know how to drive it, right? If I gave you a sports car and you started to drive like a maniac, you're going to hurt yourself and everyone around you. Unless you know how to drive this machine, it's not going to be the best use of it, right? So here is what you have to understand, the concept number 2. Your brain can produce 3 types of thoughts, right? There is that thought that makes us suffer. We call it incessant thinking. But there are 2 other thoughts. One is called insightful. Insightful thinking is problem solving, basically, okay? Problem solving was studied by MIT in 2009. They put people in MRI machines. They gave them word puzzles. Believe it or not, the right-hand side of their brains lit up for a second or 2 as they solved the puzzle. And then the verbal communication engine of their brain, the one that they use when they speak, lit up for up to 8 seconds, and then they found the answer. Okay? So basically, the brain solved the problem in a second or 2, and then took up to 8 seconds to turn it into words. It literally is talking to you. Okay? Until it turns it into words, you don't know the answer. Right? The interesting part of this is insightful thinking is amazing. It's why we invent iPhones and Android phones. Right? Like everything else we've done as humans, by the way, we push our abilities to the limit. Huh? So we have muscles to move around, but we also use them to run marathons. Right? And we have brains to problem solve for our survival, and we use them to build this civilization. Right? Insightful thinking is good. We want insightful thinking. The other is my favorite type of thinking. They call it experiential thinking. Experiential thinking is when I tell you, find the red color in that brain. Can you find that? Yeah, easy. You focus in, you zoom in, you find the red color. Interestingly, when you find the red color, you don't say, I don't like this shade of red. Okay? You don't say, I prefer it would have been blue. You don't judge it in any way, you just find it. You experience the world as it is. So University of Toronto did a study in 2007, one of my favorite studies of all time. They put people in MRI machines after training them to meditate for 8 weeks. So when they were in the MRI machine, instead of launching into all of those weird ideas, they focused on their breathing, right? They just experienced one segment of the reality of the world, which is their breathing coming up and down. They completely focused on that, and the right-hand side of their brains, the prefrontal cortex and the insula, lit up. Okay? Then there were those others, like all of us, who were not trained on meditations for 8 weeks, so they put them in the machine and they immediately launch into thoughts, right? My boss is annoying, my boyfriend is this, you know, my Warsaw is too cold, I don't like this, I don't like that, I like this, I don't like that, and so on and so forth, right? That incessant thinking nicely happened in a very different area of their brain, in the midline area of their brain, right? Which basically meant that those people were using a part of their brain to be unhappy, while everything useful was in a very different part of their brain. Okay? Which goes back to that simple assumption they gave us when we went to school, where they said unhappiness is the tax you have to pay to be successful, okay, in life. It's not true. Unhappiness happens here, and all things useful happen here. Okay? Which basically means your unhappiness is not a prerequisite to your success at all. As a matter of fact, the most successful people that you will ever come across do not do that incessant thinking at all. They have a very strong ability to turn every incessant thought into a useful thought, experiential, okay, or insightful. And that, by definition, makes them a lot more productive, a lot more successful, not because they're unhappy, but because the process, not because they're happy, but because the process of becoming happy constantly actually removes the redundancy and waste of thinking incessantly. Okay? So let me tell you this. When they did the University of Toronto study, the people who meditated for 8 weeks, right, their midline areas of their brain actually shrunk. I have been meditating in a very unusual way for the last maybe 12 years or so. I tell myself that I meditate around 12 hours a day, right? I meditate on everything. I don't sit in a meditation room ever and focus on my breathing, okay? I meditate on every one of your eyes. I don't know if you've noticed that. I meditate on every single grain of wood on the floor. I meditate on the smell of coffee. I meditate on everything. I'm paying full attention to everything around me all the time. Experiential to the extreme, okay? And I can, if we have time for questions afterwards, I can tell you my style. But with that, when I was writing Solve for Happy, my editor came back to me and said, can you give us a few examples of that incessant thought thing that you talk about? I couldn't come with any. I could not come up with any. I have no incessant thoughts in my mind. When I do what they call mini silent retreats. Every few weeks I stay silent for 6 hours on a Sunday. I swear to God, the only thing that my brain does is it starts to play music. That's it. It's like, we have nothing to talk about. Like, yeah, I mean, it's going to be 6 hours, so we might as well enjoy it, right? It's really weird. And I'm not saying I'm a saint or a guru. I'm not at all. I'm like you. I am a businessman, right? It's just that it shrinks. The less you use it, the more it goes away. The more you use this, the more it grows, right? That's great news. Going back to the gym analogy, huh? Going back to the gym analogy, the less you use this, the more it will go away, and the more you will use that, the more it will grow. Okay? So before I go there, so to answer your question, it means that I have one simple rule when I deal with my brain. It's a very simple rule, and I actually believe you can all apply that. I tell my brain, you're allowed one of two types of thoughts, either a joyful thought or a useful thought. And I have an alert system inside me. Whenever my brain brings me a thought that is not joyful and not useful, I say, no, don't agree with that. No, Becky, leave. Okay? So let me give you the examples. When my brain, so how do I handle the suffering? Huh? When the pain of missing Ali is going to always remain. Understand that. And the pain of certain things in your life will always remain. You have to make sure it is marked as pain. Pain goes away, right? So I feel that that I'm missing Ali. That's not within my hands at all. That will continue to happen for the rest of my life. When that happens, my brain has two choices. Either it can torture me forever by telling me thoughts like, you should have driven him to another hospital. When that happens, I have the choice of saying, this is not useful in any way, brain. Can you give me a thought that I can do something about? Give me a useful thought. What can I do now is the question that I always ask. What can I do now makes my brain come back and say something like, okay, let's write his model in a book. Let's share it with the world. Let's translate it into 28 languages. Let's make it 10 million people happy, now about 1 billion people happy. That's great, right? It doesn't bring Ali back, but it engages me in a process of thinking and engagement that actually makes the world a better place, makes him proud of me, makes people remember his model, makes people hopefully wish a good wish for him, which makes me happy. You understand? This is one. The other is a joyful thought. So my brain will often come to me and say, Ali died. And I will say, Ali lived. Simple as that. It's the same event. Ali lived for 21.5 years and died for 3.5. Okay? If you want the truth of the reality, that's the whole story. My brain is trained, like every one of our brains, to look at the part that is wrong. Okay? I tell my brain to look at the part that is right. 21.5 years of beautiful memories, of so much that I learned, of times where we played music together, we played video games together, and I can actually tell my brain, Ali lived. Tell me a little more about that, right? So the pain will always be there. The suffering is within our choice. And that's really the whole difference. The whole difference is, for all of us, pain is real, because pain is a survival mechanism, and pain is the only way we can develop. What you do with it, would you surrender and sit down and say, okay, I'm going to be depressed for the rest of my life, uselessly, okay? Or do you turn that into something that makes your life and the life of everyone around you better? That's your choice. You know, so here's the point, huh? Understand the following. A thought, not an event. Remember this, please. A thought, not an event, triggers an unhappy feeling, right? The event might be the Uber driver did not smile when I got into the car. That's the event. It's as dry as that, right? The thought might be he disrespected me, right? Which, by the way, is not true. He doesn't even know you. Just let's agree to that. But that thought, he disrespected me, creates an emotion that I'm not good enough, I'm insecure, right? Which triggers another thought that says everyone is going to, you know, attack my insecurity. Everyone will disrespect me. I'm disrespected. This place is disrespectful. Life is annoying. That will create more emotions. That will create chemicals, right? It's a spiral, right? My example of that is I decided to become a vegetarian around 28 years ago, 27 years ago. And then because I was a stubborn, thinker as I used to be, my brother told me, you really have to eat 70 grams of protein a day for your weight. I didn't. So within 4 years, my muscle mass deteriorated to the point where my metabolism dropped to 1,400 calories a day. Okay? At the time, I started to tell everybody, you see, I am genetically designed to be fat. Okay? Everything I have ever eaten makes me fat. Every day I have eaten more than just a little bird, I became fat. And yes, my observation was true. But the reasons were not that life gave me the wrong metabolism. The reasons were I chose an action in life that made my muscle mass lead to a specific metabolism. Okay? And I dieted, like for years and years, I would lose weight and then gain weight again because anything I eat makes me fat, right? Until one day I realized I was being too stubborn and I changed my approach. I realized that the way to do it is to actually gain muscle. It's not to lose weight. So believe it or not, from where I was to where I am now was never a process of dieting to lose weight. It was always a process of dieting to win muscles. Right? And my metabolism today is 1,973. At 1,973, on top of the workout that I do, I can eat almost 1,400 calories more every day and not get fat. So not 1,400, only 2,800. Okay? It's a choice. You know what that choice entails? It entails that I, number one, make fitness my priority. So when you offer me cheesecake, I will say no. It's as simple as that. So happiness has to become our priority. So when someone says, hey, by the way, you should be unhappy, you say, no, I shouldn't be. It's not the tax I'm planning to pay. Okay? If you're unhappy with your job, leave. Okay? If a boyfriend is hitting you, leave. Leave. Take the action. Move far away. Right? Because the incessant thinking about it doesn't solve anything. The action solves things. We're in charge, 100% in charge. This process of unhappiness, I told you a very big statement. I said every unhappy moment in your life was produced by this thing, right? Incessant thinking leads you to happiness if the event is positive, and unhappiness, or suffering as I call it, repeated unhappiness, if the event is negative. But these are not the only two states we have in the modern world, okay? There are 3 more states that we don't even think about. Does any one of you know a friend who is always unhappy? Oh yeah, raise your hand. You live in Poland. Does any of you have a friend who is always unhappy, right? So when it's summer, for them, it's too hot, okay? When it's winter, it's too cold, right? When it's autumn, it's too dark. When it's spring, they're too busy, right? Is life giving them different seasons than the rest of us? Like seriously, do they get a different winter experience than us? They don't. What do? They constantly look at everything and find what's wrong with it, right? They could look at summer and say sunshine, but they say hot. Why is that? Because they fall below the clarity of thought. Okay? Whatever life gives them, they're going to find what's wrong with it. And when they fall below the clarity of thought, they get into a state that I call the state of confusion, prolonged suffering. Does any of you have someone who's always happy in your life? Okay. Please, if you don't have someone who's always happy in your life, start searching. Okay? These are the people you need to hang on to. Right? There you go. I'm not going to even repeat that. Okay? If you don't have someone who's always happy in your life, by the way, ask yourself why. Because maybe you're attracting the guy that you want to complain to so that he complains back to you. Right? But those who are happy all the time, they look at summer and they say sunshine. They look at winter and they say ski time. Right? They take the same seasons that were given to the other guy and they say this is amazing. They get into the Uber driver is rude. They sit there for 15 minutes thinking about nothing but it's good that this is just 15 minutes. Okay? As they walk out of the Uber, they tell themselves, is it really a good investment of my life to spend the next 1.5 hours unhappy about 15 minutes? Is that good ROI? Right? Let alone 67 years. Right? So as they think of life that way, they get into a state that I call the state of joy. If I had a choice, I would have called the book Solve for Joy. Right? The state of joy is what we should all aim for. If some people can do it, then we all can do it. And by the way, those states are not different people. Huh? I just positioned them for you as different people, but they happen to you at least once a month or maybe once a week for some of us. Do you know those days where you wake up in the morning and everything is so grumpy? It's like I come and say good morning, you go like, don't good morning me today, like I don't want to hear you, right? Everything's wrong, right? And there are those other days where you feel like a butterfly, right? A glass drops and it breaks and you go like, oh, how beautiful, look at those, it's so amazing, right? Now, as we shuttle up and down between those states, it's entirely up to the way we think of life. There is, however, a state that is really deceiving, and it's the biggest problem of the modern world. And with a ton of love and respect to Poland, it's a massive problem in Poland. Okay? It's called suspended thought. Okay? Or the state of escape. Poland and Ireland. And the UK, and everywhere actually. It's the modern world's replacement of happiness. Think about that. Life is difficult, you're not able to find your happiness. What do? You decide to replace happiness with weapons of mass destruction that we call fun. Okay? Now that is really interesting. So I am now thinking about my boyfriend not kissing me, and it's really not making things good for me, so I put music on and I dance for 3 minutes. Right? When I dance for 3 minutes, my body engages in a physical activity that stops it from thinking. Not about the positive and not about the negative. It just suspends my thought for the 3 minutes of dancing or 15 minutes of dancing. And what happens? Default setting, you feel happy. Okay? You actually have not fixed the problem for your unhappiness. You just suspended your thoughts for 15 minutes. What happens after 15 minutes? You sit down on the sofa, you feel the euphoria for 15 more minutes, and then 15 minutes later your brain goes like, are you trying to numb me? You know what happened in the morning? He didn't kiss you in the morning. We need to talk about this. So you take yourself to the gym, right? On the treadmill, you're running at speed 10, your brain goes like, we're gonna die if we don't focus on this, let's forget the boyfriend thing, right? And then for the 40 minutes you're on the treadmill, you're not thinking about anything, suspended thought, you're happy. Right? Is there anything wrong with fun? No. I have a fun quota. I can guarantee you I have more fun than all of you combined. Okay? Right? Is there anything wrong with fun? No. In itself, no. But when you use it that way, you're using it as a painkiller. You know what a painkiller is, huh? You get a headache, right? You don't fix the reason for your headache. You might have a very serious food allergy for something, or for example, that's causing the headache, but you don't fix it. You go like, I have a headache, 2 Panadols, I'm done. 4 hours later, the Panadols wear out, and so you need 2 more Panadols. That's what we do, right? We move from dancing to the gym to loud music to listening to whatever radio on our commute to Facebook all the time to plugging into sitcoms to a party on the weekend to a vacation every 6 to 8 months. Right? What are we trying to do? We're trying to find those special moments where our brains are numbed long enough for us to feel happy. Right? The problem is you haven't fixed the headache. So you have to keep pumping Panadol into your system. And the problem is, at the beginning, Panadol works. After a while, you need extra strength. So a party is not good enough. You need a wilder party. The treadmill is not stopping your brain, so you jump out of an aeroplane and do extreme sports. And tell yourself, oh, it's the modern thing. No, it's not the modern thing. You're trying really hard to numb that machine. You drink. Why are you drinking? Is it because it's an amazingly enjoyable feeling of how you vomit and wake up with a hangover the next morning? It's not. You're just trying to numb that machine. Okay? So if you do that, you're mixing happiness with fun. And I beg you, if there is anything that you need to start your journey with, is don't numb the pain. When you feel unhappy, understand what's wrong. And when you understand what's wrong, fix it. And when you fix it, you won't need the fun. But you will have it nonetheless. Like I tell you, I have a ton of fun. I have a quota of fun, but I use it as a supplement. You understand how you take your vitamins in the morning to stay healthy? Right? Vitamins are not making me healthy. I'm healthy. I'm taking them to stay healthy. That's what I do. I have a ton of comedy, a ton of music, a ton of time with people I love. You know, I travel all the time. My beautiful girlfriend comes and visits me very frequently. Right? Why? Because I'm already happy, and by having all of that in my life, I'm happy to continue. Right? Moment of silence for reflection here. Good. I can stop here. I have one more concept that I can stop here and have questions. I think, we have 10 more minutes? Yeah. So let me stop here and have questions. But before I stop, actually, I just want to tell you this. The model is a lot more complex. Huh? I've discussed with you slide number 1, chapter 1 and chapter 2, right? The idea to understand how, the reason for our constant unhappiness is that we solve our happiness equation wrong, okay? And we solve our happiness equation wrong because we factor in what I call 6 grand illusions and 7 blind spots in the way we solve the equation. And this is the core work of the book, okay? To understand, for example, that thought is an illusion. Thought will always exist, but I think, therefore I am is an illusion. You see through that, it's done, it's fixed. Right? To understand that our brain filters the truth. It doesn't tell us the truth. Okay? You fix that, most of the time your events will be correct. Right? Or there is a shortcut where you focus on the truth. So going back to the gym example, it is hard work. Right? Most of us will find that 1 or 2 illusions are the reasons for our unhappiness. 85% of our unhappiness. Right? So you fix those, and 85% of the unhappiness goes away. But it takes commitment and practice, and commitment and practice, and it will take you 6 to 8 weeks to master one of them, right? You have to understand all of them, identify which one is your biggest problem, and then master 1 or 2 of them, okay? You can find that in the book, and you can find that online. I have all of my lectures. Every concept in the book is online, right? So go to youtube.com/solveforhappy or on Facebook. There are many, many talks. So just invest in it. Invest in it like you would invest in your fitness. Okay, go ahead. Mic around. The mic doesn't work. Does it work? Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Is it working? Okay, cool. So I have a question about what's on the surface versus what actually happens in your head. Because I've lived abroad for around 6.5 years, and I realized, leaving Poland, I thought, oh my God, we are really the most prone to complaining nation ever. But then I realized...
I did not say that, no.
Yes, you did.
Okay, I hinted, yeah. Not ever, by the way.
It's not like it's not true.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that other nations are actually happy on the surface, and they're like, oh, great, especially English people.
Yeah.
Everything's splendid, lovely.
You're absolutely correct, yeah.
And then when you actually sit them down, they're like, oh, shit, everything is terrible.
Absolutely
and everything.
Correct.
And with us, I feel like it's the other way around. Like, we complain, everything's terrible, dog shit, you sit us down, and when you really dig into our life, we are sometimes quite happy.
Good.
So I was wondering about the surface.
So there is another place that you should also visit, which is Colombia. Okay, and there is a 4th place where you should visit, which is Africa or India. Okay. So you're absolutely correct. Huh? So there are nations that complain a lot, but are slightly happier than the ones that are totally restrained and don't complain at all, right? But there are nations that don't complain and really enjoy their life. And there are nations that actually are by design peaceful. Okay, they're just peaceful. They're okay with whatever is happening in their life. And I cited the 4 cultures just so that you think about it. So if you're saying you're better than level 4 by being at level 3, I agree. Okay, level 2 is even better, and there is a level 1, right? However, what I actually criticize a little about Poland is not that you complain, is that you're so well trained to find what it is you should complain about. Okay? Is that you will look at everything and basically see what in this event is valid for complaint. Okay? What is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong? The fact that you complain about it is great because it lets it out a little bit, but the fact that you're constantly looking for it is what makes you sometimes unhappy. Right? So what I'm encouraging you to do is to literally deal with your brain as your tool. I have a technique in my brain. Again, I told you some tips, but when I deal with my brain, whenever my brain gives me a negative thought, I ask, so what's positive about this event? Because 70% of our thoughts, this is scientific research, 60 to 70% of the thoughts of an average human are negative. You know why? Because it's a survival machine. It has no interest whatsoever when a tiger shows up to say, oh, wow, look at how beautiful that tiger is. Right? There is no benefit in that. The benefit is, oh my God, we're going to die. Right? So our brains are trained by nature to have 70% of the time negative thoughts. Okay? In some Eastern European nations in specific, we're trained to do that a lot more often. A lot more often. You're constantly looking for what's wrong. Okay? Now, is that the truth of life? That things are wrong? Are the things that you're complaining about the full truth? They are true, but are they the full truth? As I was talking in Amsterdam yesterday, you know, rain in September in Amsterdam, yeah, disappointing, right? But it's not raining bombs. If you want to see the whole truth, look at how people are in Syria, right? People come to me and say, oh, I hate my job. Right, go ahead, complain about it. And then I say, good, you're fired. And they say, no, hold on, I like my job. Right? You know, we had a story in one of our engineering offices in Google somewhere in the world, I'm not going to mention where they complained heavily that the coffee machine did not fill the cup all the way to the top. Okay? And as an engineer, every engineer can actually calculate. So they went back and said, which means I have to do 1.8 more trips to the coffee machine every week, which is really against my productivity. Okay? HR, lovingly as they are at Google, they said, sure, let's fix it. I, annoying as I am as a manager, I said, let's remove it. Let them walk to the Starbucks outside, right? And a week later, they will love the coffee machine that's not filling all the way to the top. You understand? Yeah. So what I would ask you to do is not to stop complaining. Absolutely complain, right? If there is something to complain about. By the way, the problem is, why are there so many things to complain about? Can we train our brains that it's only fair, for everything bad to say one thing good? Okay? That's only fair. If you tell me something bad, tell me something good. If you tell me Ali died, tell me Ali lived. It's fair, right? But here is the question. If you're mathematically oriented like I am, is that really the ratio of life? Is it 1 to 1? Or is it 99 to 1? The ratio of our life, ask yourself this. What is the norm of life? To walk on solid ground or to walk in earthquakes? Right? What's the norm of life? A good time with your boyfriend or the day that he was tired? Right? What's the norm of life? Sickness or health? 99% of life is good. We complain about the 1% because our brains are trained to find it. So if you find that it's 91 to 1, 99 to 1, that's the fair ratio. That's the ratio we should keep. Otherwise, your brain is lying to you. It's not the truth.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Others? By the way, time is an illusion. Let me tell you this. Every one of you has the ability to stay 10 minutes more if you wanted to. But anyone who doesn't, you can go. Thank you so much. All right, any more questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to go back to the example of people who are unhappy all the time and people who are happy all the time. Because I perceive it as a result, not as a cause. So if everything is going well, it's easy to be happy, and if everything is going bad, it's most common that you will be unhappy. So, for example, the same person who always complained about the weather now got promoted, and he's walking in the rain and feeling very happy, and calling friends, telling them he's happy even though it's raining, and normally he's complaining about the rain.
For a day.
Sorry?
For a day, he would be happy
Yeah.
for a day.
Yeah, but if it repeated, so he got many other more happy events in his life, probably he won't be complaining about the weather.
Yeah.
And if somebody's experience like many unhappy events every day, he's complaining about the weather, but not just because he's complaining about the weather, but because there are some
I get your
things
point.
causing the unhappiness.
I get your point. Some people, by the way, so just because I actually need to make that clear. Some people have a very difficult life. Truly and honestly, they have a very difficult life, right? For those people, my heart is fully with them. I actually talk to them very differently than I talk to you, right? The real question is everything going wrong in that person's life? Seriously, define wrong. What is wrong, right? Is it really that horrible to live in Poland and be at campus and have a business? And, is it really that horrible? So really, where is the threshold of everything in my life is going wrong, that's why I'm complaining about the weather? Here's the problem. The real problem is what you use grows. You understand that? If I actually work out my biceps all the time, my biceps will be bigger than my legs, right? And by complaining all the time, which part of your brain are you using? The part that is looking for what's negative and incessantly blabbering stuff that doesn't change the real world. You're growing that part of your brain. Now, go back to the whole point, the main point. The main point is this. Is my life really that bad? If it is, I don't blame you, okay? Even though I will tell you, even if it is that bad, even if you're running around in Syria and it's raining bombs on your head, being unhappy is not going to help stop the bombs, right? Being happy and balanced is going to make you do the right decisions, right? That will enable you to get the best out of the situation, right? So, going back to my example is I lost Ali. I lost everything that I really wanted in life, okay? By losing Ali, by doing everything that I'm doing now, it doesn't fix the problem. Ali is not coming back. You understand that? Yeah. Right? But by doing everything that I'm doing now, the world is slightly better than it would have been without it. Right? And it's really all about that. It's all about being relative. So it goes back to what to what I said at the beginning on one of the first questions. One of the dearest concepts I have to my heart in this book is a concept I call committed acceptance. Right? Whenever a thought comes to your brain, there is a flow chart that you can follow. The first part of the flow chart is to ask yourself, is this true? Okay? If my brain tells me, hey, I am so unhappy because I didn't get promoted, this is so unfair, life is unfair, you say to yourself, is life really unfair? Okay? Is life really unfair compared to every other one of the 7.2 billion people living out there? Is life unfair to me? Because I will guarantee you, if you actually look at the truth, life is not unfair to you, right? If it's true, then we will go one path. But if it isn't, stop thinking about it. If the thought that generated your unhappiness is the Uber driver was rude, disrespected me, okay? You say to your brain, is that true? And your brain will go like, yes. And you'll say, how can it be true if he doesn't even know me? How can he disrespect me if he knows nothing about me? Right? It's not true, brain. Stop thinking about it. Right? So thought number two is it is true that life is unfair. Life is hard. I lost my son, or someone has a chronic pain in his neck, or someone who really cannot find enough to eat. Right? And the two things to do then is to ask yourself, can I do something about it? Right? If I can do something about it, do it. It will make life better tomorrow than it is today. If you cannot, then honestly, accept it, because I could reject that Ali died for the next 27 years, and then on my dying bed I would say like, damn, he died, right? He will still be dead 27 years from now. right? So accept it, but commit. Commit means I'm going to make tomorrow a little better than today, even if it doesn't bring him back. Going through that cycle, that's useful thinking. Otherwise, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not the truth.
And how about the negative thoughts about the future? Because
Good.
it took a lot about
How about the negative thoughts about
yeah.
the future? Let me answer that quickly. The future hasn't happened, and most of your negative thoughts about the future in your past did not happen. Okay? If any of your biggest fears have ever happened, you wouldn't be here right now. Right? The challenge we have is this. If you actually, in Solve for Happy, I discussed that with very solid relativity, space-time understanding. Right? The reality of the matter is this. Now is the only moment you will ever live. Now is the only moment you will ever impact. The past is gone. You cannot impact it anymore. And the future hasn't happened yet. Okay? And when it happens, it could be much, much different than what you predict it to be. Right? So for me, I say there is something that we call brain time and something that we call practical time. Brain time is to worry about the future and kill yourself obsessing about it without taking action. Practical time is I'm worried about the exam tomorrow, I'm going to sit down and study. Simple as that. Right? Oh, but I should have studied yesterday, I'm never going to finish. That's fine. Study as much as you can between now and tomorrow. Simple as that. Right? Now, that practical time is what you do when you book an appointment with the dentist. You calculate how many hours before you have to leave your home. Right? It's what you do when you have a deadline on your project planning. Okay? You say, I'm going to write this code now, I'm going to write that code then. Right? It's what we do when we launch a product. We say we're going to aim to launch the product then. Okay? None of it is incessant. None of it causes you to feel unhappy. Right? But it's practically allowing yourself to say, okay, I'm concerned. This is the pain about the future. And not turn it into suffering, but turn it into useful thinking that makes you happy and successful at the same time. Others?
Sorry, just one more thing to finish my point, because I think that the major cause for unhappiness is the repetitive event that caused the unhappiness. So
give me the mic.
Yeah.
Give me the mic so that you don't talk anymore. No. The major cause for your unhappiness, for unhappiness in general, is the way you think about what life gives you. Life is bound to give each of us hardship. Your hardship is different than mine, okay? Than yours. We all go through tough times, right? It's irrelevant that we go through tough times to our unhappiness. What is relevant is the way we think about them. Do we get up and take action, okay? Or do we surrender and say, oh, daddy didn't bring me the toy? Truly and honestly, it is not about what life gives you. It's about the way you think of what life gives you that makes you unhappy. Trust me, some of the most difficult... leave your computer, man. Some of the most difficult countries on earth are the happiest people on earth. Go to India. Like, people cannot eat, they don't find enough to eat. Their life is miserable in so many ways. There are cows all over the place. You know, to go from A to B would take you 4 hours of walking instead of taking the tram. Their lives are miserable, right? But they are happy because when you ask them, they would say, what else would I wish for? I have enough to eat today. I have wonderful kids with me. Everything's okay, right? To them, to you, you would look at that and say, this is a horrible life. To them, they say, I'm so much better than the other 1 billion Indians that are starving more than me. It's so interesting that the way they direct their gaze, you go, seriously, go to Africa. I met people in Africa that would have to walk 20 kilometers a day to get enough drinking water to drink for the day. Can you imagine that? And when you ask them and you say, you know, are you happy? They'll say, yeah, it's amazing. When I get back there, my kids are there, we play together, we cook, and then, you know, it's amazing because I have to walk, get the water, but my husband goes and brings the money, and we're good. It's not about what life gives you. It's about the way you think of what life gives you. And I really think, and I say that with a ton of respect again, too, somehow and I talk about myself too, somehow in the Western world, we think that we have a customer service agreement with life. It's like, hey, life, you're supposed to give me what I want, right? When did life ever tell me, hey, by the way, we're giving you Ali for the next 48 years? Life said, we're giving you Ali. That's it. You can enjoy as many hours as you can with him until he's there. There was never an agreement, so there is no way for me to go back and say, hey, by the way, life, that's not what we agreed.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah.
The question is, you told us that you meditate during the work, because I asking about that because I usually thinking a lot about every single task, every single job that we must do, and you told that you have 6 hours when you do not think about anything, and this is
No.
I think
Yeah. So I do my silent retreats every 4 to 6 weeks. So silent retreats are normally 10 days of silence. A friend of mine suggested that you do 6 hours, every 4 or 5 weeks, so I do that. But the way I meditate is actually really different. So if you think of meditation as experiential thinking, right? It's your ability to stop the incessant thinking and focus on experiencing the world as it is, experiencing your breathing. There are so many things you can do to meditate. I'll give you a few examples and you can pick whichever you want. When I play music on my iPhone, for example, yes, I have an iPhone because Android, refused to take my credit card, surprisingly. Anyway, so when I play music on my iPhone, I make it a point to literally take an action on every song. Okay? That action would be, no, I'm not in the mood for this. So I shuffle all the time, right? The action could be, no, I'm not in the mood for this song now, so I advance. Or this song is actually amazing, I should add it to a playlist. Or this song is not a song I would crave when I'm at 37,000 feet, so I erase it. Okay? And by doing that, music doesn't become background anymore. Right? Music to me, when I'm listening to music, I'm listening to music. Right? I'm listening to the lyrics, I'm listening to the music, I'm completely paying attention, I'm not doing another task. That to me is called meditation. When I walk to work in California, I ask myself to have the task of one pretty picture a day. So I walk for 40 minutes to work. Those 40 minutes, I see every butterfly, I see every orange blossom, I see every smiling child, I see everything around me, completely absorbed in the present, okay, and not thinking about anything at all. When I drive to work sometimes, okay, I set 6 radio stations on my car radio, and I make it a point never to listen to something I don't like. So if there is an advertising that comes, I switch. If there is a song I don't like, I switch. If all 6 of them don't have a song I like, I switch off the radio and I count a minute, completely present, and then I switch on the radio again and I search again. Right? When I'm sitting in presentations, if you give me a number on a slide, I will read it. Okay? And people will say, oh, Mo, it's not important. I say, next time, don't put it on the slide. Right? So every number I will read and I will understand. Every color on the chart I will notice. Okay? So I will actually probably, it may surprise you, but I will probably remember a lot more about you guys and your body language and the questions you ask than most of you will. Okay? Now, all of that is not meditation in terms of sitting in a room and observing the heart of a rose or the flickering light of a candle, but it truly is experiencing the world as it is. And here's my big statement. I started to do that 4.5 years ago. Believe it or not, my life slowed down. Okay? I actually feel that I lived longer in the last 4.5 years than I lived in the previous 45. Okay? I truly, truly feel alive. Okay? With all the pain, by the way. So yesterday I worked out. My chest muscles are hurting a little bit. I'm completely paying attention to them, completely tuning into them. Okay? You can sit in a room like this while we're doing the presentation, and when something is happening and you're not paying attention anymore, look for the cables in the room. Right? Try to ask yourself if this is real wood or tiles. Because if it's tiles, you will find a repeated pattern every 4 to 6 tiles. Okay? And I actually do that exercise. Wherever I find wood grain around me, I just do this. And to me, that's meditation. It could be a minute or 2, and then I would decide, yeah, this is real wood. Right? So I love classical music, but not as much as heavy metal. I apologize. So I like Vivaldi and Rachmaninoff, but not the mainstream others. So yeah. And classical music, by the way, when I listen to classical music, so Four Seasons, for example, I have several variations of Four Seasons on my iPod. and I compare them. Okay? Again, it's all about, it can play and become background. I don't want anything to be background anymore. Okay? I want everything to be foreground, completely lived, completely absorbed. Every one of my teams, you know, when Agnieszka says that, you know, that meetings with me opened her eyes to something different, it's because not only am I fully listening to what she's saying, but I'm also fully listening to everyone else told me about the topic.
Do you practice gratitude?
All the time. Okay, so gratitude is a very interesting one. Let me tell you two things on gratitude and as it relates to the happiness equation. Okay, so the happiness equation is events miss expectations, you're unhappy, right? Gratitude trumps that all the way through. By thinking about the good things in your life, you're tilting the equation from what your brain is telling you that 70% of life is wrong to the reality of life, which is 99.9% of life is right. By practicing gratitude, what you're constantly saying is, this event meets my expectation, that event beats my expectation, this event meets my expectations, thank you, I'm happy with what you're giving me, life or Lord or whatever you believe in. That's one. The other interesting side of that is, have you ever asked yourself, why is it that you're always happy in nature? Whenever you go in nature, you're happy, right? Because none of us have ever developed the habit or the trend of looking at a tree that is a little tilted or crooked, okay, and saying, it shouldn't be like that, it should be vertical, right? You understand that? Your expectation of nature is it's going to be crooked. No one ever sits in front of the ocean and says, I like the view, but can you mute the sound, right? You don't do that, right? What you do is, by definition, you look at nature and you say, I accept you as you are. Okay? I actually like you as you are. I expect a flower to be imperfect. If it's perfect, then you look at it and you say, is it man-made? Right? And that idea of events meeting expectations truly is found heavily in gratitude. Okay? And yeah. And one of the practices I use for gratitude, by the way, is a lot bigger than just my normal life, because I'm very fortunate compared to the average human. But I actually go all the way. There is a concept in Solve for Happy I call looking down. And looking down is for you to understand that here in Poland, you're probably doing better than 90% of the Polish people. Most people who are in this room would probably be doing better than maybe, let's say, 80% of the Polish people. But you're doing better than probably 7 billion other people on the planet. Or let's say 6 billion other people on the planet. You know, just think about 783 million people who don't have access to clean water. Okay? Just think of 30 million modern-day slaves. This is the one that always gets me, huh?
But isn't it the Beijing app again?
To think about those things?
Yes.
No, so Beijing app is actually designed to complain. Okay? It's designed for you to look at pollution and say, look at what the Chinese are doing to our world, we're all gonna die. Right? The app that says, you know, to look at the reality of, I am not one of the 30 million modern-day slaves. This one is really serious. Huh? Understand this. There are men and women, your age, your look, your background, that have been human trafficked. Right? For no reason whatsoever. You didn't do anything right and they didn't do anything wrong. And they're locked in a room or in a factory somewhere, being used and abused every day of their life. Okay? This could have been my life, is a statement that I actually always tell myself. By the way, I also try to do something about it. That's another element, that's another layer of gratitude. But for you to actually think that, suddenly you tell yourself, so next time my boss annoys me, it really is not that bad. There are much worse bosses out there. Right?
I need a kind of parental advice. At the moment, I'm studying a lot for my daughter. She's 3 years old.
Yes.
She's one who's really foolish. So she's enjoying. Okay, thanks a lot. She's enjoying every moment. So every bug, every ant, every leaf, and so on.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing, and I'm studying a lot. But at what moment she's going to change, and what can I do so that she'll
Best question
stay?
ever. Okay, so you guys are a lost case. I told you all. No, I'm joking. But it's about the children. So children will teach you a couple of things, huh? One of them is, look at how happy they are, right? It's truly their default setting. They're so okay with everything. They see a bug, and that's it. Like, bug, okay, let me chase this thing and have fun, right? When do they change that? When you tell them to.
When we kill them.
Yeah, when we kill them, right? And so a lot of people will tell me, so what do I do? Give me the 5 things I should do to grow my children to be happy. There are no 5 things you can do to grow your children to be happy. Nibel, my ex, which I believe was the best mother ever, had one rule which was very straightforward. She said, she had 3 rules, but one of them was, your kids will never do what you tell them to do. They will do what you do. Okay? So if you want them to be happy, be happy. Okay? If you want them to be critical, be critical. If you want them to be control freaks, be a control freak. Right? Whatever it is that you fix, they're not going to suffer. Right? So for me, the idea of you trying to show them how to be happy, you don't really have to do much at all. Can we please not force them to believe that they're not good enough unless they achieve certain things in life, okay? And when we were raising Ali and Aya, Nibel's view of life was very straightforward. She said, they are not me and not mine, which basically means they will never be what I want them to be, okay? They will be what they want to be if I support them. So our perception, again, when I told you the roles changed. The roles changed twice. Our roles to our kids changed when they were around 4, when they physically did not need our protection anymore. So understand this, huh? Parenting starts in mammals because they are fragile physically. So you have to protect them physically. But once you cross that point, the concept that you're there to protect them, that you're better than them, that you're superior to them, that's not true at all. Okay? As of a certain age, whenever that is, they should start living their life, and you're there to support them. So the way we raised the children was very different than others. We would say, guys, would you like to play tennis? Aya would say no, Ali would say yes. We would go take Ali to tennis, and that's it. Two times later, Ali would say, don't like it. Sure, no problem, right? We wait, and then he goes like, can I try to play football? Yeah, go ahead. Don't like it. No problem, right? Until one day he woke up and said, I want to do archery, right? He said it. So we looked for an archery club in Dubai. He went, did 4 trainings, okay? 4 hours each. The coach said he should join the national championship, right? 2 weeks later of 2 more trainings, he joined the national championship, shot 10 arrows, all in the bullseye, okay? Won the championship and never shot an arrow again. Typical Ali, right? So basically, what we were doing was we were there to enable his passion for archery, right? And even enable his passion for no more archery. That's okay, right? He ended up being a musician because he loved music, but he was never an athlete. Aya ended up being an artist, not an economist, even though she loves math, but she loves art more. And the idea is, can you please stop thinking about the insurance policy of like, I need to make sure that they're as prepared for success as they can be, okay? Otherwise, they will starve to death. Starving to death is a World War II inheritance that we're still living with today, right? I think you should just tell yourself, how can I give them a good shot at a life where they are successful enough to survive, but super, 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 super happy, okay? If you make that your target, I think it will be okay. I'm being kicked out, so I apologize. I'm going to be around if we have more conversations. Thank you so much for your time. Oh. Hold on. You have a promise to keep. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.